Welcome to Midlife Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I am delighted to introduce today's guest, Laurie Whelan. Laurie is the Chief Financial Officer and a Senior Vice President at the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain, Connecticut. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Georgian.
Let's talk about your role at the Hospital for Special Care. If you could cover some aspects of your job in terms of what's most challenging, different situations that present opportunities for growth for you and your staff.
Sure. As the Chief Financial Officer, I'm responsible for what we call the whole revenue cycle, which is from the admitting process all the way through the patient's billing process. We manage all of the financial records. We manage, pay all the employees. We pay all the vendors from an accounts payable perspective. And we also manage all of the health information, which is our old, what we used to call medical records department. And we also manage all of the information technology, or the IT department. So trying to manage all of those different aspects of the business for the hospital is quite challenging, but very rewarding.
And I would think, having worked in large organizations, that the managers you work with who are putting their budgets together, or department heads, are at different levels of fiscal literacy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
They come from different disciplines.
Right.
And they may be newer in their jobs, not having done budgets before. So how do you go about helping your staff help them?
Right. Actually, that's very rewarding. That's the rewarding part of the job. We've got a lot of clinical department managers, so budgeting numbers are very foreign. And you find that in the clinical areas where they really don't feel that there's a need to manage the numbers because they're really directly related with patient care and they want to care for the patients. So it's a delicate balance in how we kind of talk to them, and a lot of it's education. So we walk them through what it is that they're looking at, why it's important, and really try to explain to them the importance of trying to manage the patients as well as the finances of the department. So, they manage anywhere from purchasing supplies for the department, but the major cost is their labor. So for them, it's managing their staffing and what they need, because we're open 24/7. So it's a matter of balancing all three shifts, whether there's snowstorms or it's summer vacations and leaves of absences. They really have to be on top of what they need for staffing. And they really also have to understand what the patient's needs are at the same time. So it's challenging for them, but I think as we talk to them along the way, I think the most important part is that they understand and they can start relating to the work that they're doing, but the other side of the business that they're also responsible for.
And what about with your staff? What would you say some critical skills are for being really competent? I'm focusing on the fiscal area, but you also have information technology and record keeping. So in general, what kinds of skills are most valuable?
Well, I think customer service is very important, because in the finance area, whether it's finance or IT or medical records, we are an administrative cost to the organization, and we support the organization. They couldn't do their jobs without us, and therefore it's part of our jobs to understand what their needs are. And like I just mentioned, if they have difficulties with their budgets, or really payroll, or even electronic, just basic, Excel skills and budgeting processes, it's our jobs to sit with them and really take the time and understand what their needs are, whether it's directly to them or their staffing, whether it's making sure that they have the right tools in place to do what they need to do for their jobs. A lot of the IT role are changing systems and expanding and implementations of new systems. So that's where it becomes difficult to really understand what's out there and how we keep the hospital ahead of the technology curve.
Which there's been tremendous changes with the technology,
Yeah.
right? And privacy issues.
Right. Right.
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, HIPAA,
Yeah.
the confidentiality, educating our employees of, what a data breach is and how, when they use the electronic mail or anything to do with the computer or even photocopying when they're dealing with the patient's medical records, how they can't leave information out in the general area of the hospital or making copies and forgetting a piece of paper on the copier. So it's a true education that we have organization-wide for all staff, whether it's, the kitchen staff or finance. Some of the finance staff don't realize that, we deal with a lot of confidential information, whether it's payroll, budgeting, that takes a lot to, make sure you might know a lot of information, but you really have to keep it confidential.
So the sensitivities are very, very
Yeah.
important in a healthcare setting.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. And we're actually in the process of rolling out our electronic medical records for our outpatient departments. And today we went live with our physician clinics. And I think the more electronic systems you put in place, especially the electronic medical record when it has all of the patient's health information, it's critical to educate the clinicians on that. And, from the locking down of the laptops and the iPads, because so much of that could disappear and be stolen or left behind by accident. And so it's a lot of, I keep saying education, but that truly is. And
Awareness.
Awareness, absolutely.
So where did you work before you came to the hospital for special care?
Well, I've been at the hospital for about 13 years in the fall. And prior, I was at Manchester Hospital, which is Eastern Connecticut Health Network, and I worked directly for the chief financial officer there. And before that, I was with the visiting nurses, so I had some home care experience, as well as I kind of grew up into the healthcare through public accounting as well.
So as I understand it, you joined one of the big six at the time, accounting firms, right out of college. And can you share with our viewers what some of the experiences you had there, the diverse range of industries that you served and the different business cycles?
Sure.
Yeah.
Being in public accounting, you really get a depth of understanding of different businesses. And I was lucky enough to start in the winter. I was a December graduate and started in the winter. So I jumped right into working in manufacturing. You learn about different year ends of different business types. Hospitals happen to have fall. Most of them have September year ends in the state of Connecticut. But you've got your manufacturing, and I got to work from manufacturing. I jumped into healthcare. Did a lot of smaller not-for-profit schools. So I was out at a lot of the secondary schools, the Avon Old Farms and Ethel Walker, and spent a lot of time out in New London at Connecticut College, out at Yale, auditing their student financial aid records. So it really gave me a great background in different business types. It was a great experience. I really loved it.
So would you characterize it as trial by fire?
Absolutely.
They just said, here, go there. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
Get busy.
You pick up and you just go and you learn along the way. And I worked with a lot of great people, so every job that you were on, you had a distinct team. So there were maybe 3-4 people, depending upon the size or the work that you were performing at the organization. And you really learned the business. And as I was in public accounting for about 4 years, and had, a lot of time to grow into the position, which really, I spent time in the healthcare when I was there. So that really gave me the understanding of what I wanted to do and to be in the healthcare. And since I've graduated and got into the public accounting, I've been in the healthcare environment.
Great.
Which I love, yeah.
And being in the accounting field, what, would be part of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the emphasis on getting more women into those fields. Let's talk about that a little bit. Were there as many women in finance when you first entered the industry? I mean, do you see a change in that pattern?
I actually do see it changing, especially in the healthcare. Historically, it's been a man's world in managing and in running hospitals, and I have seen that change. And especially at the Hospital for Special Care, we have a majority of the women that are managing.
It is, especially with the new president CEO.
Right,
And
right.
let's talk about the opportunity you had from high school, college, and that whole internship experience
Right.
that ended up in Japan for a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, it was phenomenal, and I give a lot of the credit to the cooperative work experience program. I graduated from Windsor High School, and in my junior year, I got involved in the cooperative work program, and that gave me the opportunity to work. At the time, it was the old Royal typewriters.
Okay.
And I think I still might have one, but I worked for them all through my high school and my college. So over 6 years I was with them. And the Japanese bought out Konica Business Machines, bought out Royal Typewriters when I was a freshman, I think, in college. And as part of the new owners, they wanted to take a group of employees from the main headquarters and bring them over to Japan to see their headquarters. So I was lucky enough to have been selected to go, and I was in college at the time. And went over there for a week and got to see their home office headquarters and the plants where they made the copiers and the cameras. And it was a tremendous experience. And that really gave me the platform to get into the Big Six and stay focused on school and so forth. And it was a phenomenal experience.
Today, you are on the advisory board of the New Britain High School Finance Academy.
I am.
Talk
I
a little
am.
bit about that.
Well, I think because of my background and having the opportunity when I was at Windsor High School and seeing what it did for me in progressing my career, I really think it's important to carry that out and to work with the New Britain High Finance Academy. It's a new program. It's still in its infancy.
Okay.
But we, as a board, are supporting the director of the program and trying to get the children involved, with kids involved from the school, and starting to really make a difference. There's a little over 200 kids in the program, and we do an internship program. So this will be the second year that we'll have an intern at the Hospital for Special Care in the finance department. And I think it's really educating the kids and giving them that opportunity that I had, as small as, you kind of take it for granted. And it's just, they have no background in it, so it's all new to them. It's foreign territory. So really opening their eyes to, working with Excel and computers, and what I really am excited about this year is giving the individual an opportunity to not only be in the finance department, but also to spend a little time in IT, spend a little time in the medical records department, also have an opportunity to be accounts payable and billing, and just a little bit of everything to really give them an idea of what the business, running a business is like, and what the healthcare environment is like. So I'm really excited about it.
And do you see a fairly equal portion of young men and women in the academy? Are
Yeah.
girls well represented?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The hospital actually has been involved with the Healthcare Academy and was instrumental in starting it up a few years back. So the Finance Academy is kind of evolving from that same program. And as there are a lot more healthcare professionals, the finance, as I mentioned, is growing. And it's a tremendous opportunity for those kids. And I think really educating, what we're trying to do is get beyond the high school and to really get into the junior high and to start educating the families so that they have an idea of when their kids get into the high school, what they could do and what their pathway can, where it can bring them.
I think a lot of studies show that junior high is the place to really get someone's attention about potential fields,
Right.
whether it's the trades or finance, health, whatever. And I think I really applaud the Academy's efforts around involving the family, because certainly if the family doesn't have any experience with it,
Right.
they can't really encourage them or ask the best questions about things
Right.
and help guide them.
Right,
Right.
right. They've got to be the support for the kids.
Right.
And in New Britain, it's tough because a lot of the families don't have the knowledge base. And that's one of the struggles that the school system is finding, is keeping the kids in school. So that's a challenge.
And I would imagine for kids in today's day of social media, familiarizing and stressing to them the importance of confidentiality and information they may have access to, because,
Right.
you know, so much of their lives is out on social media. I think the whole idea of
Right,
what's private,
right.
confidential, that would be a big learning right
Yeah.
there, to know that
Yeah.
the world is not totally wide open.
Absolutely.
And it shouldn't be and it can't be.
Absolutely.
You did not have a finance degree in mind when you went to college, despite this experience you had, right?
Right, yeah.
And so talk about how that came about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I for some reason, wanted to get involved in fashion merchandising. I saw myself as being a buyer in New York and Paris, and I loved clothes and dressing and so forth. And so I took a liking to that, applied, went to school at Bay Path, which they had a specialized fashion merchandising program at the time. It was a 2-year all-girls school, and got into that program. I spent my first year and started taking some business classes while I was there, and got into the marketing. And I really started thinking about what I might want to do, you know, in addition to the fashion. And with the marketing and the business classes, I said, you know, I started thinking, if I get into fashion, there, you know, my next year, I'm not going to be able to go back, and you know, I'll lose a lot of credits. And so I changed my major, decided I wanted to be a business major, and got into the finance and transferred over to Central, and where I graduated.
And speaking of the families that you're looking to educate with the Finance Academy, did you have anyone in your family or an older person, a mentor type person, that helped guide some of those decisions for you?
You know who that was? It was my manager at Royal Typewriters.
Really?
Yep. She really took me under her wing as being, you know, from high school, managing through college. She was a tremendous woman, and I loved working with her, and it was like I said, it was a great experience, but it was also a mentor for me. So.
Wonderful. So there was that one really important person who kind of showed the light,
Yeah.
kind of a path that was a potential for you.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
your work on the advisory board, you're trying to help replicate
Right.
some of that. Another topic, in addition to women getting more in the STEM fields, is just the idea of so many educated women, and how do they go about even thinking about balancing more traditional roles, mother, perhaps wife, they could end up being a caregiver at some point, that society, you know, has always leaned on women to be. And in this Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, her approach tends to be encouraging women to put the pedal to the metal and keep going and just figure out ways to get through it. What are some learnings you've had as being a woman in business with all of the requirements? You're in your very busy budget cycle right now, and you certainly know the demands of.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it is difficult. You've got to keep very focused. I think that's important. You've got to be focused. You also have to be very organized, and in order to manage all of the roles and responsibilities of the job. It's being a single mom. I'm a single mom, and that was one of the factors when I came to the hospital for special care. It was work-life balance, and being a single mom and working in the chief financial officer role was a little daunting, the thought of that at first, but it's definitely something that was doable. And you just have to really manage your time and really know, especially being in finance, you have to understand what your deadlines are, what your target dates are, and you just have to manage around it. I mean, that is critical to being successful in any field, not just finance. I mean, you have to know what your deadlines are, you have to know who you're accountable to, and what, what the outcome needs to be.
So really looking at expectations that the organization has of you, and then it seems like certainly things don't always go as planned when one has a child,
right.
right?
That's
Different
right.
emergencies come up or
They get sick, you get the call
requests.
from the
Right.
school nurse,
Right.
at least once a month. It was when he was young. you know.
When you say it influenced your decision to join the hospital for special care, how was that environment different from working as an auditor or working at one of the other hospitals? What flexibility did the organization offer you?
Right. Well, that was one of the things that was very important to me, that work-life balance. And coming to the hospital for special care, they were willing to work with me. If I needed to spend time at home, if I had to work from home, they would, work around the schedule. Never had to do that. I was
Very
able
good.
to manage it all in the office, and I was lucky enough to have a strong support for my parents. So that was a godsend for me. But it really, managing the business and really the staff that work for me are critical, because I can't do my job if they're not doing theirs. And what I tell them all the time is I'm only as good as the people that work for me. As a manager, you really need to, hire strong individuals that are able to hold their own. So that's I think very important.
It sounds like just even knowing you had that flexibility and the support of the hospital probably gave you the confidence that I can pull this all together and
Yeah.
keep all the balls in the air and whatever right?
Yeah.
And as we get into our more mature careers, women can and do, I believe, really bloom in that the ability to pull together experiences and the wisdom we pick up along the way. And sometimes some of our responsibilities get lessened. I know your son has recently gone to college, right? So that's a big change. I call them our Zenith years, as to when we can really breathe and bloom and just do some things that capitalize on all the experiences, that we've had. How would you paint a picture of where you might like to go, what you might like to do?
Well, there's two different aspects of that, Georgian.
Okay.
There's the personal as well as professional. I think that from a personal perspective, with my son going off to college, that it's giving me an opportunity to sit back and see, what's important to me, because all my life it's been work and my son. So now it's time for me.
Nice.
And so it's kind of scary, but it's exciting. And and I think personally, I think traveling. I'd love to see the world. I took a trip to South Africa with a friend of mine a couple years ago, which was a phenomenal experience. So I think seeing the world is something that I'd like to do. From a business perspective, I think really growing myself personally in my profession, someday possibly working my way up in the organization or in an organization, thinking about maybe returning to school and getting some more education would be exciting. So
no shortage of new vistas.
no,
It's
no,
wonderful.
no.
Let's think about if you were to write a letter to your younger self, what wisdom you would pass on to that younger self.
Oh boy.
Dear Laurie.
Dear Laurie.
Dear Laurie.
I think from what I've seen over the past few years, I would tell myself that there needs to be a work balance, maybe a little bit more personal. I've dedicated myself to working, and I think there needs to be a little bit of a work-life balance, but also I think reaching out more into the community, I think, is something that is important in a manager's role, and doing more for the community. I see that as being important.
I would think that could be challenging with working,
Work.
being a single mom, and the community. Yeah. But certainly at this point, you're looking at it and saying, wow, that's a piece that,
Right,
yeah, maybe wasn't as apparent
right,
to you at that time.
right. Well,
Kind of very
yeah.
focused.
I spent a lot of times on baseball fields and soccer fields, and so now I have some extra free time that I can spend more time at work or do something different. So that's,
Well, I certainly think the advisory board that you're on is a step in that direction. I mean, to me, that's such a powerful way to take those really positive experiences you had of being mentored by others and having the opportunity through the work study with, Royal Typewriter and being able to help set up something
right.
that'll probably could benefit 200 people, 200
Right,
youth
right.
and more as each class goes on.
Right, yeah, that's really exciting. And,
Yeah.
and to me, I think that's going to be personally fulfilling. Not just knowing what that type of a program did for me,
Okay.
so.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I always close with a quote, and what I thought I might do is hearken to Eleanor Roosevelt, who's one of my favorite, and she says, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." So I wish you every good luck in terms of your next stage, moving into your Zenith years. Applaud everything you've done, and thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm sure you're an inspiration to anyone who is looking to build a business career.
Well, thank you very much for having me on,
Absolutely.
Georgian. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. And please tune in to hear other fascinating women on Midlife Matters in future segments. Thanks again so much. This is Georgian Lussier, your host.